Well, hello, citizens of the world. Shaba Shams here with another episode of I-Learn&Earn. As we continue to inspire and empower connected citizens of the world to create success and achieve financial freedom. Well, today's guest is actually super special. His name is Zain Jeewanjee. And I had the pleasure to meet Mr. Zain a few months ago on Clubhouse. And then from there on, we developed a very keen friendship, talking back and forth and trying to understand what is it that he's trying to build and create around himself. So without any further ado, please welcome and join me in this session to learn more about Mr. Zain Jeewanjee. Welcome to my show. Started with our questions. So tell me a little bit about yourself, Zain.
Oh, that's about myself. I was born in Kenya, East Africa, moved to Pakistan in 1960 at the age of 5. My family moved there. Then I grew up in Karachi, Pakistan. Went to school, Cambridge affiliated school there, got educated. In 1971, when I did my O-levels, I would have been 15 or 16 years old, started my first company to support my family. At that time, we were living on handouts and paychecks from my grandfather, and my father had taken ill. So at the age of 16, I thought, hey, listen, I've got to be the one in the family who's going to support the family, and started my small little clothing fashion designing company, which was doing well till I had to migrate to the US in the 80s, in 1983, for my son's medical treatment, and then I've been in America since then.
Wow, fashion. I would not have guessed. When you said my first company, I was like trying to guess what would that be, but I wasn't gonna bet on fashion.
Okay.
So thousands of questions, like why fashion? And so you are originally from Pakistan, but born in Kenya. What led you to that land or that situation of being born in Kenya?
My grandfather had migrated there in 1860s or something. By 1897, he had about 38,000 workers imported from India to work laying railroad in Africa.
Okay.
So he's like the Union Pacific guy of Africa, laying railroads, and then Dad was there. So really, I was second generation, third generation Kenyan. My father was born in Karachi though, but I was born in Kenya. So it's the parents who had migrated there after getting married and then returning back to Pakistan.
So what do you consider yourself then? Kenyan, Pakistani, Kenyan, American? So the reason I'm asking this question is I consider myself as a hybrid. I was born and raised in North Africa, and I came to America some 25 years ago. And I am under a mix or influence of so many different things, like the French and the Middle East, and so many parts are part of who I am. And in the end, I ended up just embracing all of them, and I call myself a hybrid. I'm a little bit of all. And I refuse to pick a side when I realized that I was a mix of so many things. So how do you perceive yourself? Kenyan, Pakistani, American, like how do you bring all these bits and pieces together? And I'm sorry, I kind of got off a little bit on the focus of the interview here, which is about entrepreneurship, startup, and angel investors. But this is such identity, such an important part of who we are and who we become.
I would consider myself, it's a great question, by the way. So, if there's a cricket match going on and in America, which is going to have a World Cup next year, the T20 Cup, if America is playing Pakistan, I think I'll cheer for America.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think I'll cheer for America. Now, if there's
Pakistan versus Kenya. Pakistan versus Kenya.
if there's a war between America and Pakistan, I'll certainly be with the underdog, which is Pakistan, right? Say, bachao, go save them, save them. Kenya and Pakistan, if there's a cricket match, I'll go for Pakistan, not a Kenyan team. More Pakistani, I think. No, I can't really say, you know, the 70s song Torn Between Two Lovers. Yeah. I really am torn between being an American or a Pakistani. I really don't consider myself a Kenyan just by being born. I think you don't really have to, I don't think your roots belong to where you were born. Your roots belong to where your heritage comes from. You know, and I think my heritage would be Indian, Pakistani, Gujarati, and then American. And I think my kids would be Americans because they would be. So the majority of my life I've spent in the United States of America. So I would consider myself that way an American, but a lot of depth of, because the better years, and you know, your better years are really from the age of 12 to 26. Those are your better years. I mean, you make friends without selfish reasons. Yeah. You make connections without selfish reasons. You enjoy the flavors and the foods without having worrying about the sugar level or the diet level. Sure. You're eating all the junk in the world. You don't treat people indifferently because they're rich or poor. Right. You treat them with what they are. So you're really at the young age, you're really maturing, right? So wherever you spend that time, you know, the people you dived in the swimming pool with, the people that early in the morning at 4 o'clock in the morning rang your bell and said, hey, let's just go out and have a little coffee somewhere. Yeah. Those are the years when you don't have the pressures of credit cards and bills to pay and planes to catch. I think that becomes your heritage in my opinion. And that would be for me, Pakistan.
And do you consider yourself a hybrid?
I think I'm an American.
Okay.
So my mind and my brain is American, but my soul and my heart is Pakistani.
Yeah.
So that's a hybrid. That's a hybrid.
What I say, actually, I did a presentation not long ago here in Daytona Beach, and then when I went in saying I am a hybrid, I was showing a slide with a picture with two sides, you know, like one is the electrical and one is the gas. And I said, yeah, I'm a hybrid and I refuse to pick a side. So it's kind of really important to celebrate all the many aspects who make us who we are. So we cannot just reject something just because we're not comfortable with it, but in fact, just embracing and just seeing it more enrichment. You know, it's the more we are exposed to and the more we learn from others, the more enriched you are, and therefore you can relate to more people. So let me go back to fashion. It's one of my passion coming from Africa and all. What influenced that decision of you going into fashion as your first company?
Yeah, and I think all my life, all my creativeness, all my inventions, as I call them, whether it be in the current industry that I focus in, which is insurance industry, whether it's in the fashion industry, whether it's in anything that I've invented or created, it's always been, in my case, a need or a vacuum or something that didn't exist. And I say, hey, let's go do it. I say it very easily now, after done it, you know, numerous times over my life, that, you know, when I focus on things that nobody's done, because then you can't fail. Because if nobody's done it, then you didn't fail. You just learned to improvise it and do it again and try it again. So I think, how did I get into fashion? You know, I just graduated, did my O-levels. I saw my parents needed financial support. Somebody in the family has to, you know, pay the bills. I was 16 years old. So really, in Pakistani standards, that was a very young age. Today I live in Silicon Valley. In Silicon Valley, a 16-year-old starts a company. It's okay, no big deal.
Yeah.
Even a 12-year-old can start a company. All right. You just AT&T, they deliver a phone. Next morning, you got a phone. Your dad gives you a laptop, and Klein Perkins puts in $50 million into your company, and you're in business, right? That's the Silicon Valley. And it's not a dream, right? That's a reality. A 12-year-old can start it, and they do. And next thing you know, by the time you're 16, you've already sold it for $100 million because you had an exit. But in Pakistan, in 1971, it was very unusual for a 16-year-old to venture out into opening up a company. And it was challenging and it was fun. And I had a Levi's jacket that I'd bought somewhere. And some friend wanted it. And I said, oh, let me make a copy of this.
Huh.
And there was no denim in Pakistan at that time. So I looked around, I went to a tailor and he said, we tried to figure out what is this fabric? He said, I don't know what this fabric, it's not cotton, what is this? So we took some canvas that you make tents out of. I took that canvas to him, dyed it in blue ink, actually.
Wow.
Parker pen used to be a fountain pen in those days. Mont Blanc has taken that market over now, I think. But there used to be ink. We took that blue ink, dyed it. It didn't even come out completely well. It was faded. And we made a copy of the jacket. And fast forward 10 years later, it was one of the largest men's clothing manufacturing company in Pakistan.
That's amazing.
I'm proud and I claim it. I did the first catwalk ever done in Pakistan in 1971. February 1971 was the first catwalk show done in Pakistan ever. So I did that. And I remember the excitement of the models walking up on this little band playing there and people sitting around. And if you go on my Facebook, you'll see some photographs on it. It was fun. It was fun.
Wow, that's simply amazing. I was actually going to ask whether heritage, you carry the whole aspects of heritage into your first fashion company, but it looks like it was not the heritage.
No, there was heritage. I'll tell you what it was.
That's interesting. Okay.
It was my mother. My mother used to dress us up really well. There's some photographs, and I think that they're on my Facebook as well, where I'm only about 8-9 years old, and I'm wearing this. There's a designer called Robert Graham in America. I wear his shirts all the time. Very colorful, extremely loud, but yet sophisticated.
Yeah.
And there was this tailor in Pakistan who used to make those kinds of clothes. So I always had it. My mother would make it incredibly, very particular that their kids would always be dressed immaculate. My father would never be without cufflinks and pocket square, tie rolled up, muffler, just very, very polished. There was a joke I remember they used to say about my grandfather, said my grandfather's clothes in Pakistan would go to get dry cleaned in England. This is in the 1890s. So I always grew up on this thing that you got to be well dressed, and my dad's shoes always polished.
Tiny, yeah.
Never going anywhere outside the house without proper attire, dignified. So I think I got a lot of that from my father and my mother. So I always had a trend, and I was always well dressed. I'm better dressed than all my friends, all my circle of influence. And I always wanted to, my creativity was in me, which is what I do in all my businesses. I create things that are different. I don't do things that everybody else does. I like to be the odd man out.
So I interviewed a good number of entrepreneurs and people who have created a level of success, because I'm fascinated by success and what people perceive as success. What is success to Zain? How do you perceive and define success to you?
I think when you can do more things in life morally and ethically correct that you chose to do, that's what's your success. So if I wanted to be a teacher and I'm teaching students all my life, I'm successful. I think where we miss out is we count success with material gains. And I don't think that's success. Success doesn't mean I had an exit in a company with $100 million. Success means I build, something that didn't exist in the world that does good today, or is progressively doing better in certain industries. So for example, imagine that today, in this little pocket, I can listen to a song of Mehdi Hassan, who's a Pakistani singer, passed away, in digital quality, that when I heard in 1971 on a record LP, long playing record, those big lines,
I remember those.
And they would be scratched out, and the sound would be distorted. 40 years later, I'm listening to the same song in better quality.
Yeah,
that's ingenuity, right? And for what? Steve Jobs one day got up in the morning and he said, I'm going to take Sony by storm. Sony Walkman was the music instrument. He knew nothing about music, but he wanted to take that on. That's a success.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is success.
So it's funny, like as we are doing this interview, I just received a text message from Shafat and to schedule certain things. And then I quickly said, I'm interviewing Zain right now. So his mind is probably blown away that you and I are doing this interview because it's recorded while he's just responding to some messages. So that's pretty interesting. So
he's a successful man.
He's a wonderful brother. Yeah.
So success, I think, success, as I said, it's a lot is in your mind. What you want success to be, what you think success should be. So, sorry. Yeah.
So you are an entrepreneur. You started your first company at 17 years old?
16.
16 years old, okay. And since then you've had a very long track record of creating, innovating, just disrupting and bringing the best version of yourself and getting also, because what I heard about you, even though I don't investigate or, study my guest, that you are labeled as the giver, somebody who's very much in the community, helping your, people around you. I must ask you this question. Zain, of all the great accomplishments that you have accomplished in your life, which one should I say you are the most proud of?
Wow. Look, fashion and creating an industry that didn't exist in Pakistan has now become a massive industry. I'm proud of that. But I think two things that I've created, which were, one was the travel insurance product I created for people to come into the US out of my own need in the early 80s. And then the whole Silicon Valley needed that product. So that I'm proud of that. But I'm most proud of the first online insurance product. If I travel back in time, 24 years ago, almost a quarter of a century ago, I sat in a room and decided I'm going to have an online policy that you can buy online on the internet, while massive insurance companies with budgets of $128 billion had no clue how to do it. I pivoted that and created the product and created internet. There were people in Silicon Valley that didn't know internet as well as I did in 1997. And I was not a techie guy. I'm not a code writer. I'm just an insurance sales guy. And I created the first online. I'm proud of that. Because how many people, even today, InsurTech, even 25 years later, InsurTech is not even close to what we had created in 1997, 98, creating the first online and the first insurance aggregator in the world. That's an invention you'd be proud of. I'm proud of that. The first online aggregator, that was my greatest proud moment. My latest company, though, I would think I'll be proud when it fulfills that dream, because that's my philanthropic side of doing good back, or my legacy that I'm trying to leave back.
And can you share with us?
If you can. Of course. It's engaging and hiring remote workers across in third world countries to work for US companies here in the insurance industry.
Wonderful.
And the target is maybe doing 500 to 1,000 and then going to 10,000 and then eventually to 100,000 people working remotely from countries in the world. And it could be women, most probably, likely, that service the insurance industry in the US.
Wonderful. You mentioned a very key word that a common friend of ours, Jared Yellen, says all the time, because he, as you know him, and I'm a partner, business partner of Jared's. He always refers to himself and to us as non-tech founders, non-tech tech founders, right? And you are in that mold as well, which I didn't know that you are a non-tech tech founder as well. What do you and what have you perceived as being the biggest challenge that people like you and me face in being non-tech but tech founders in terms of solving problems through technology?
I think on the contrary, with me, I've been fortunate because when I was a kid, I used to play a lot with Lego, and Lego didn't have lights in it at that time. And I would take bulbs and put lights in. So I was always engineered brain, but not the education wise. My education was into sales and marketing and BA economics, yet my brain always did architecture work and engineering stuff. I used to play with, Skeletrix, which is a race car set, and I'd fix cars and I'd do that and stuff. I'd always do that. So I think to me, on the contrary, I have an advantage in technology. So every time I look at processes, I say, how can I automate this? What can I do to make it automatic? So for me, it's been actually the reverse. I think I've had an advantage over most technology people. And I'll tell you why. I just thought of it while this question is coming out, that most people, if you talk to an engineer and look at my fingers and you tell them, can you move these? Can you move these? They'll say, no, I can't because they're interlocked. I have never known engineering, so I say, yeah, of course, they can move. Just move them out. So because my brain is free to think flow, as the water flows, I say, it can be done because nobody's told me it can't be done. It cannot be done. Nobody's told me that. So it can be done, should be done.
Absolutely. So you mentioned this company that you are currently working on, and I have to ask the question in a different angle because this might or might not be the answer to my question. Is this, or what is the most important thing that you are working on that really is keeping you up at night and just bringing that excitement into your life? So is this recent adventure you're on, or is it something else?
So I think that's a good question. And this is to all the listeners out there, all the young entrepreneurs out there. One of my, I've had no failures. I've always had lessons. I've been very fortunate. I've never failed in that.
Yeah.
Everything I've just learned. So if something doesn't happen, it's because I've learned something out of it. But I think one of the reasons is I get excited, stay excited, and I do multiple things simultaneously. So I'm working on 2 or 3 things, but the one that I talked about, providing employment to women in Pakistan, women in India, women in Sri Lanka, women in Philippines, to service the insurance industry in the US remotely, is helping numerous causes in so many ways of sharing the wealth that America makes globally, to provide employment where people can't get it, to empowering women, because in many of these countries, women can't really have the fair stake in playing and working as they do in some other areas of the world. Absolutely. So I think this really, by far, what motivates me right now is this, and I've got other things I do that motivate me too. So like little challenges, like somebody might walk in my office and say, this problem, how do we solve it? And I love that. So I love solving problems and thrusting myself into challenges that nobody else wants to deal with.
Yeah, actually, when you mentioned this company of hiring women and people from the third world, to empower them, it's like my whole mission is to inspire, empower, and connect citizens of the world. Because without inspiration, you cannot get people moving, right? And then if you don't empower them with what they need to know or the resources and the tools, then the inspiration is going to die. So once you inspire and empower, what do? You bring connectivity. You bring citizens of the world to work together and create the best version of anything possible, because two minds are always better than one. So I love that, and there is just like this incredible force of good in it, and that's also what motivates me to start my, I don't know, I think I shared with you my startup, which is called Kidable, connecting kitchen to the table. And my motivation is really to empowering families who have kids at home, who don't speak the language, who only can cook and bake, and they have the right and the empowerment to becoming foodpreneurs. So we're building this marketplace to connect the kitchen to the table and really help as many people as we can to earn money from their passion for food. So I really get that, and I felt strongly about just the second you started talking about it. What is your vision with this company and all the other thing that you're doing, bringing them? What is Zain's vision moving into the future? What do you want to see create? And you mentioned the key word that is Zain's legacy. Where is Zain's legacy going?
Yeah. So, and you had asked me the first question, and I'll connect that to this last question. You said, where is your heritage from? Wait, are you a hybrid? Are you a Pakistani?
Yes.
I think everyone has a purpose in this world. Every human has a purpose.
Yeah.
When you're thrust in this world, if you're born in Africa, or if you're born in Middle East, or if you're born in Europe, if you're born in America, wherever you're born, there's a purpose and a reason that you've been thrust there, right? You could have been the child of Joe Biden, or you could have been a child of a pauper. It doesn't matter. You have a reason and purpose. That's what I feel. The difference is, I feel there's a reason why I was born in Kenya, grew up in Pakistan, and then thrust in the world's most economically favored place on planet Earth called Silicon Valley. Why? Why did that happen? Must be a reason. So now I'm in Silicon Valley. So I know technology. I'm good at technology. I have connections and friends in Silicon Valley. Questionably the most affluent area in the world today. Questionably the most intellectually savvy place in the world today. And I see poverty, and my heart and my soul is in towards Pakistan. Is there a reason that I can do something for the people back home in Pakistan, in India, in Sri Lanka, in Bangladesh, what we call Southeast Asia? What can I do from here, sitting here, that helps here? So I'm not taking anything away from the US, and it helps the people there. If I can do, if I can do 500 to 1,000 employees in the next 6 months to a year, and then I can do five to 10,000 in maybe 5 or 6 years, and then do 100,000 jobs, I would have fulfilled, I think, my vision and my legacy. 100,000 people that wouldn't have had jobs now working for US companies. That's the dream.
And that is actually called the moonshot. The second someone has a moonshot, people they stop and think about it. Like my moonshot with Kidable is to build 10 million users by 2025. The moonshot is really important for you. Having this vision of what you want to accomplish, what does it do to your how does it impact your everyday life?
I think in any goal, any mission you're on, anything you dream of, right? Your dream and the fulfillment and the process and the pain of getting there becomes less as your vision is clearly aligned with doing something, achieving the goal of doing good. So there are two things, and this is my line, and you can use it if you want. Don't chase the finish line, not the cup. Chase the finish line, not the cup. What does that mean? That means don't chase the end result, the exit, the $1 million I'll make. Chase that I'll finish this, I'll get 100,000 people employed. Don't chase that I'll be a multi-billionaire because I'll have 100,000 employees. I'll be the world's largest employer in Pakistan. No, that's not what you don't go for your finish line. Because when you chase the finish line, three things happen. Your motivation is getting to the finish line. It may pivot and change, and that's okay. If your goal is the money line, the longer you don't make it, it becomes less and less motivational for you. If you're chasing the finish line, it's not a bar, it's a moving target. And it'll change because the finish line will change. So it's easier to achieve at a longer stage of time. Whereas if you're chasing the money bar, the longer it gets more painful.
Absolutely. So you do a lot of philanthropic work as well, and you are an angel investor, because I remember in one of the Clubhouse chats we have, you're like, oh yeah, I might actually consider looking into the 10x incubator. What motivates you, or what are you looking for when you do invest, especially in tech companies? With the 10x incubator, they have the 4 criteria. For you, what is it that you look for? Who do you invest with and in?
I've got to like the idea myself. I've got to be something that I want to do or would like to do, and I never did it. So that's got to be first. I've got to like it. I don't look at the numbers and the market size, and I should, but I don't. What I'm more looking at is the team, the founders. Are they dedicated? Are they really into this? And it's got to be a good thing. So, if it's a beer company, wine and beer company, I'm not going to invest in. I just won't. Even though they may have a new way of technology. And it's got to have a play of Tomorrowland, not Yesterdayland, which means it's got to be a technology play or something that's fine. And then the last criteria, I think, is the widget is good, but as the team understood how they'll market it, are they building it with selling abilities of knowing where they'll market it and distribute it? I look at that. I don't do that much of investments. I'm a very small angel investor. But the things I get involved in philanthropic, I look at a need, I look at the cause, and if I can bring value to it. So not only write the check, but I can also bring value to it. That means if there's a cause that I can motivate more people to come in it, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Silicon Valley for startups is becoming super pricey and over the top, right? What do you perceive being a solution, since you are a problem solver, moving forward for young startups who have less resources? What would be your recommendation for them to get started without the outrageous cost of the standards of Silicon Valley tech companies?
I don't know if I'm the right person to ask that question, because I'm not experienced enough in the millenniums of and how they invest, so and where the costs are around the globe. I think it's not that expensive in Silicon Valley. I think it's cheaper, and I'll tell you why I think that way. And I may be wrong. I could be wrong. Number one, the accessibility to both talent and funds is greater than most other places in the world. I think you have got abundance of money here. They'll pour into you if you have a brilliant idea. Then it crystallizes itself, and a litmus test is done on you, because if nobody puts money, that means your idea is not very good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think it's less expensive to do it in Silicon Valley than in somewhere else. Because somewhere else you'll spend a year of your time getting small bits of investment, putting less money, but you wasted a year discovering that this idea is no good. Whereas in Silicon Valley, if it's a good idea, it doesn't matter the amount, because there's abundance of money available. So it's not expensive, right? It's actually cheaper. Secondly, talent is available. So if I wanted the best mug maker, I'll get it here in Silicon Valley because it's tech driven. I'll get the best AI guy, I'll get the best, and I'll get all these brilliant brains that have been, almost everybody has a startup here in the Valley. So the ideas that flow in are, and then accessibility, even mentors. I don't think there's a place on planet Earth that's of this size, so small, that has so many mentors and winners. Winning is an attitude, right? Winning is an attitude. Absolutely. That attitude flows all over the Valley. Nobody thinks about failures at all. There's no failures. Oh, what happened? Oh, so if you go to a BC and say, well, I've done 3 companies and they all didn't go anywhere, but this one will. Whereas in other places they would go, I didn't do too well on 3 companies. So the confidence level in the valleys. So I think it's cheaper to do it in the Valley than anywhere else.
What would you tell young entrepreneurs who have so much to offer and they want to be creative and, you know, live to their fullest potential, but sometimes there's just so much noise out there. So many things seems to be so out of reach. What would be the little breakdown or chewable pieces that they can start off to get, you know, to get them going?
First of all, you know, when you have a dream, you want to work towards your dream. So whatever your idea is, make sure that you're crystal clear in your head that it's your dream and you want to fulfill it. Make sure you believe in it. Do not do it because of the cup, do it because of the finish line. Don't do it because of money. If somebody tells you this will make you a lot of money, don't get into it because you want to make money. Do it because you want to do it. The end result, number one. Number two, you will not make it in the time, in the space, and in the manner that you wanted the day you started your idea. It's not going to happen. It's going to be different. It's going to be better. It could be weaker. It could be stronger. It could be more flashier. It could be more colorful. It could be anything different. So don't get disgusted if it doesn't go the way you thought it would all go. Flow with it. Adapt to the changes. Your idea can motivate and can digress, change all the time. Your idea may be this, but you say, okay, let's do it this way because that's better. Because times change. What happened on Monday, you could start your company. On Tuesday, you might discover that there's something that just came around. It's called COVID. So maybe we have to change it this way now.
Yeah.
Suddenly something could happen. And the whole world, it could happen. So things can change. And never give up. And if everybody tells you it cannot be done, go for it. And then nobody can blame you that you couldn't do it because nobody else could do it anyway.
Absolutely. So first of all, focus on your dream, the finish line, be adaptable, and never give up.
Yeah, and work hard.
Okay.
Work hard. I think people who think they'll do it in 40 hours a week, you're not an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur, unfortunately, does take a toll on your circle of life, your friends, your family, your kids, your spouse. Everybody pays a part that all contribute for you to become an entrepreneur. Everybody's pooling in a little bit because an entrepreneur spends most of his time, he's married, his first job is his work. Many people, talk about a balanced life. I've not found it.
Zain, thank you so much for taking the time out of your very, very busy schedule. And thank you because you were just traveling and just settling in. I really enjoy this conversation.
Shaba, thank you. It was a pleasure. I do a lot of interviews. Some are just very light and flow very well. This was one of those. Thank you because you're good at it. And thank you for this opportunity for me to share my vision to your audience. So thank you. I'm
Thank,
humbled.
thank you so much for being here.